global compact on safe, orderly and regular migration, perhaps better known as the UN Migration Compact, is a global agreement around migration. It covers a number of aspects of migration, such as making sure that when somebody migrates to another country, their human rights are respected, such as by using detention only as a last resort. It doesn't compel UN member states to change their immigration laws, increase their refugee quota, and it definitely doesn't compel them to open their borders. But you might have heard something completely different, and there's a reason for that.
How the UN Migration Compact got trolled, an article published on Politico on January 3, 2019, notes that beginning in September the previous year, a coalition of anti-Islam far-right and neo-Nazi sympathisers fueled a surge in social media activity about the compact.
The burst of tweets, videos and online petitions prompted politicians in several countries to re-examine the previously uncontroversial pact and revise their views. YouTube was a particularly popular platform for the spread of this misinformation. A report cited in Politico by the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, a group that monitors extremism online, found that of the top 100 most viewed videos on YouTube about the compact, 75 were produced by people who were far-right, anti-immigration or conspiracy theorists. Politico specifically mentions Austrian far-right activist Martin Sellner. Now, we don't hear a lot about the Austrian far-right here in New Zealand, but you may have seen the name Martin Sellner in the local news lately. The reason for that is the man who carried out a mass shooting in Christchurch on March 15th, 2019, had previously donated €1,500 to Sellner's identitarian movement. But opposition to the compact wasn't just coming from the far right. It started there, but quickly spread across conservative and centre-right politics. Let's look at how that happened. Now, in case you've just stumbled upon this video, I'm only going to be looking at New Zealand, though I suspect a similar process happened in other countries. The main difference, of course, is that in a lot of European countries, some of these far-right groups actually have members of parliament. Now, New Zealand didn't produce any videos popular enough to be in that 100 studied by the ISD, but there was an online petition started by one Carol Saki, who it turns out is something of a YouTuber. But let's take a look at some clips from her video, Wake Up New Zealand by Carol Saki, Muslim World NZ's Open Borders.
I wonder how many of you actually took notice of Trump's speech when he said that we all need to take heed. He urged Europeans to put faith in family, not government. Faith and family, not government. And bureaucracy at the centre of their lives. Many seem not to notice what's going on in this world. There's nations like Germany, Britain, France and many other European countries are stressed to the absolute max. They're traumatised by fear of losing their identity, the identity of the peoples of their country of origin. It's scary stuff. They have fear of Islam, of Muslim migrants, stripping them of their homes. Yeah, they feel like they've been invaded, and I guess they have been invaded. They feel like foreigners in their own country, and that's really, really sad. And they've been betrayed by their governments. This open borders, such as we have, has given entrance to any migrants from anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter what corrupt country they're from or whether they commit mass murders or whatever. Here in Auckland, there are 4 mosques or Islamic temples, and a new one, actually a huge one, going up over at International Airport in Auckland. So that would be their welcome mat. Okay, so you know, you think of these European countries and you think they're a world away from us, but you know, when you see what's happening around us, the amount of mosque and Islamic centres and schools going up, you have to wonder how far away they are. The Islamic takeover, well, we've all seen that on telly, haven't we? We've all heard about it, we've seen it. We heard Tommy Robinson, he may be called racialist and that simply because he's telling the truth. We need to all be fearful of what's happening.
Now I know what you're thinking. Who taught their racist grandma how to use the webcam? Saki's YouTube channel hasn't made much of a splash, but the petition she started has had a bit more of an impact, being shared around the loose network of social media sites that make up New Zealand's conservative right. Here's the petition being shared by the One New Zealand Party. Or I should say, one of the two One New Zealand parties, because they had some sort of a split and now there are two Facebook pages, each claiming to be the real One New Zealand Party. I'm not going to go into that here. The page you just saw is the one run by Paul Davey. Paul Davey stood for the Conservative Party in the New Lynn electorate in 2017, but today appears to be doing his own thing. You may have seen his name in the news lately as he recently lost his real estate job after what the New Zealand Herald described as a series of racially charged Facebook posts disparaging Muslims, Africans and Maori. Here's the petition being shared by the South Island Independence Movement, nominally a page for South Island independence, probably the form of nationalism with the least historical and political reason for existence, but that's something we'll look at another time. The page is run by Solomon Tor-Kilson. If you read Kirsty Johnson's investigative piece in the Herald in 2017 looking at New Zealand's alt-right, you may have heard that name. Tor-Kilson rejects some of the labels associated with the movement, like racist and xenophobic, but otherwise openly describes himself as part of the alt-right. He used to hang around in Facebook groups with names like Make New Zealand Great Again and Kiwis Against the Islamification of New Zealand. Oh, and he runs a youth centre in Timaru, but I'm sure that's nothing we should worry about. Another group that shared the petition was the One Nation NZ Party. This is a party started by former New Zealand First candidate Kim Coloni to contest the 2018 Northcote by-election under her own banner. I don't have a screenshot from that page because for one reason or another the page went offline the evening of March 15th following the terrorist attack in Christchurch. It's unclear whether Facebook decided the page violated their community standards or whether Coloni or somebody else in the organisation decided to take it down. So here's a screenshot I saved earlier. Now that grotesque cartoon there is meant to represent Jacinda Ardern as the United Nations tax hag who wants to take all your money. Needless to say, these people really don't like the UN. Now these groups are pretty small and don't necessarily agree on a lot. Even if the two One New Zealand parties could become one New Zealand party, how could we have a one nation if the South Island gains its independence? But anyway, all of these groups got behind the opposition to the Migration Compact, as did another group that's a little bigger and holds a little bit more sway. You may remember the Conservative Party, founded by photogenic property mogul Colin Craig. The party has continued as the New Conservatives following Craig's resignation and is now led by Christchurch businessman Leighton Baker. The public face of the party, though, is Deputy Leader Elliot Ikele.
Joining us to chew over the issue is this morning's Breakfast Club of Katie Bradford and Elliot Ikele. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ikele has developed something of a profile with frequent appearances on Breakfast and airtime on Radio Live and News Talk ZB. Let's have a listen to him talking about the UN Migration Compact with Chris Lynch.
Elliot, morning.
Oh, morning, Chris. It's actually raining over here in the Papakura as well, actually, so raining all over.
A good chance to stay in, a good excuse to not do anything.
Oh, definitely. Off the top of my head, I think it's about 164-ish countries have signed up, and maybe about 20 have not. And I find it interesting also that our traditional allies, ones like the US, Australia, Israel, have not signed up. So that's also that's quite concerning.
Yeah, it is concerning. It is concerning, you're right, because our friends across the ditch, why have they not signed up to it? I mean, you could argue they've always had very strong immigration policies, stronger than New Zealand, but it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder.
It does. People are waking up and they're feeling betrayed. I think they felt betrayed yesterday when Winston Peters spoke out there in the last hour of the last day, bringing this out. It was just done in such a disrespectful, horrible way to the people of New Zealand, especially when there was such a lack of communication and interaction. And indeed, you think about it, and this was kept very quiet until it was brought up to a very large noise. And I represent the group who were the first group to bring it out publicly, and I'm very proud to be part of that group as well.
What's the group?
That's New Conservative Party.
Oh,
we were the first political party to make a public stand against this. And so we were really grateful when National jumped on board, ACT jumped on board, and even the media ended up jumping on board. So it was really good. But what we've got...
Have your fears been alleviated now?
No, not at all. If anything, they've been confirmed. And even though logically, academically, we knew that Winston was going to sign us off on this, I think there was even a small part of myself which thought, or maybe he's, playing the saviour and going to pull out at the last minute. But he didn't. He went straight ahead for it. And this is actually a betrayal of the very values that we were founded upon and that men and women died overseas for. So I think that this is actually a betrayal of New Zealanders, of New Zealand itself, and now it's up to us to actually make a stand, to make our voices heard, that we are not going to go away, and Christmas is not going to somehow blind us or fog our memories.
Elliot, I thank you for your call.
Ikele brags that the New Conservatives were the first party to oppose the UN Migration Compact, a position that was later adopted by the National Party and the ACT Party. Now I'll get to National and ACT in a moment, but first let's take a look at this video that Elliot posted to the New Conservative Facebook page.
I have just finished reading for the second time the UN Migration Pact. I realised that I wasn't able to write anything because I've never come across a document quite like this, where almost every sentence can be found in almost any or every sci-fi dystopian type thriller type movie type book. And especially if you're doing a film study or a book study, if you're year 12, 13, if you're in the first couple of years of uni, have a look at it. It is at that level where you're able to easily understand exactly what it is that the writers and those who are putting their name to it are desiring.
Now maybe it's a tangent, but I want to address this, because I don't think Elliot Ikele has actually seen many science fiction films, or if he has, he's kind of missed the point. For example, in Children of Men, a dystopian society is depicted as one that imprisons refugees.
Poor Fugees, after escaping the worst atrocities and finally making it to England, our government hunts them down like cockroaches.
Sleep Dealer is a film about how rich countries oppose immigration while depending on the largely invisible labour of immigrants.
Let our robotics do your dirty work. Safe, reliable, we make America strong.
And District 9 is a metaphor for the way asylum seekers are treated.
They don't belong here.
They're spending so much money to keep them here when they could be spending it on other things. At least they're keeping them separate from us.
I mean, geez, that one is hardly subtle. I'm calling you out, Elliot. Not just as somebody who's helped a far-right narrative gain popularity in New Zealand, but as a fake geek boy. In the remainder of the video, Elliot doesn't quote so much as one sentence from the Migration Compact. He does have this to say though.
This doesn't get any worse, actually, this document. This is end game type of stuff. And it doesn't even matter really what wing, what level, what party you are in New Zealand. If you care about New Zealand, this document is insidious. It cannot be signed. It cannot be bartered with. This is a type of thing that we need to unite against. It is vicious. And I encourage you to read through it yourself. I want to thank you to those people who have sent me some links, some reviews. Thank you also to the person who sent me Stephen Molyneux's take on it. I haven't watched it yet. I've seen that it's an hour or 20 minutes. At first I was thinking, why? But after reading the document, yep, I get it. So I'm looking forward to watching that as well. But please, this is big stuff. And the fact that our leader is signing this should give you all, not just a pause, but a thrill of fear. Because this is the sort of thing where movies, film, stories are spoken about for centuries.
Now you may wonder why a Polynesian man is so keen on Stephen Molyneux, a man who's widely recognised as being a white supremacist. Honestly though, I just couldn't answer that. With the extra parliamentary right fomenting opposition to the Migration Compact on social media and talkback radio, it wasn't very long before the parliamentary right, currently in opposition, adopted the same position. Here's Stephen Berry representing the ACT Party at one of the rallies against the compact organised in Auckland. Notice the placards proclaiming "No to Sharia, Wake Up New Zealand" and "Free Tommy Robinson." You might remember that name from Carol Saki's video earlier. Robinson is the former leader of the English Defence League, a far-right street fighting group often associated with football hooligans. That likely explains the presence of this Football Lads Alliance banner. The FLA is so closely associated with the far right that the English Premier League has warned football clubs that the group is using fans and stadiums to push an anti-Muslim agenda. Now, is it fair to judge ACT Stephen Berry on the racist football fans behind him? Maybe not. He did say in his speech that ACT isn't opposed to immigration. They just believe that New Zealand should set its own policies and not the UN. Remember though, this isn't what the Compact does. Let me quote directly from the text. The Global Compact reaffirms the sovereign right of states to determine their national migration policy and their prerogative to govern migration within their jurisdiction in conformity with international law. And then there's this. Back in 2013, when he was involved in the now defunct Libertarians Party, Berry posted to the forum Solo Passion, Solo being an acronym for Sense of Life Objectivists, saying that there was a, quote, plague of Islamic poison spreading across Europe, and noting that he completely agrees with the Dutch far-right politician Geert Wilders on this issue. By the way, if you're going to now go and Google Solo Passion, probably best you don't do that from work. Now, despite having a single seat in Parliament, the ACT Party is still relatively marginal. The National Party, on the other hand, is not.
Today I've announced that National, if we have the privilege to be government, will pull out of the UN Migration Pact. That's because National believes we've already got excellent immigration policies and we don't need to be told what to do in this area by the United Nations. We're our own independent country. As I say, we've got good policies and we should set the rules, not the United Nations.
Jerry Brownlee told Newshub that signing the Migration Compact would lead to pretty much open borders, and Judith Collins tweeted that New Zealand must never cede its sovereignty to the UN. Two first-term National MPs, Simeon Brown and Chris Penk, were instrumental in spreading opposition to the Compact on social media. See the articles linked in the description below for more information on that. National even started their own petition against the Migration Compact hosted on their website. Nina Hall, an Associate Professor of International Relations at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, said that she was startled to see National parroting the far-right protests. I would recommend her article on Newsroom, which is linked in the description. To get an idea of just how much the alt-right narrative on the Migration Compact influenced New Zealand politics, look no further than this News Talk ZB interview with Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Peter's own history with Islamophobia. In 2005, he gave a speech titled The End of Tolerance. In that speech, he stated that moderate and militant Muslims fit hand in glove everywhere they exist. Underneath it all, the agenda is to promote fundamentalist Islam. Indeed, these groups are like a mythical hydra,
a serpent underbelly with multiple heads, capable of striking any time and in any direction. More recently, his New Zealand First Party allowed the entry into Parliament of Richard Prosser in 2011, a man who in 2013 called for Muslim men to be banned from flying, and had earlier in 2006 described a rally by the neo-Nazi National Front as a demonstration of nationhood and pride.
But for all his many faults, Peters knows bullshit when he sees it. Let's hear the interview.
So after weeks of posturing, New Zealand has signed up to the UN Compact on Migration. The government sought legal advice before joining up, and the advice is that it will not compromise sovereignty, nor is it legally binding. But there are still a lot of people worried about implications. Joining us, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister, obviously, Winston Peters. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Can I correct you for a start? What do you mean after weeks? What do you mean after weeks of posturing?
Well, where's the open debate been, Minister? Who's been front-footing this for us?
No. Let me deal with that statement of utter bias at the start. After weeks of posturing, this thing was originated by the National Party in September 2016, more than 2 years ago. So when you talk about posturing, the people who are posturing are those people who said it was a great idea Then all of a sudden, because the alt-right and a few uninformed people...
You were aware this debate was raging. Well, we're short on time, yes.
No, you're not short on time, because that's why I'm on this program. You promised that I'd get a fair go to explain things.
You do. You will.
Rather than have all these statements by people who are uninformed, as you are, on this matter.
Let's just shoot down some of them.
2 years ago, the National Party signed up to it, and so we put a lot of work into finding out whether this is a good idea. And after all this work and legal opinions, both here and abroad, we decided that as a matter of principle, as a statement, not a treaty, not binding, but as a matter of principle, it wouldn't be a bad idea to sign up to it.
Winston, the concern seems to be, though, that there has been a vacuum of leadership in the last few months on this issue as concerns, either real or imagined, have raged. Where have you been on this? Why has there been this perception of secret squirrel?
Well, there you go. Now, that's another statement of bias as well. You may as well repeat the nonsense that's been out there from people who are prepared to lie to themselves, and they want to lie to the public as well. Well, they're not going to get away with it. That's why we quietly went about things. All the time you're speaking about, of course, there were meetings abroad discussing what it all meant, conversations between, for example, the UK and ourselves and others. As what do you think about this? Now, just because some people decided that they will do a bit of dog whistling, the very people that were at the back of the formation of this policy, there's no reason for us to start behaving in that absolutely abhorrent way.
Okay, can I just run through a few issues? First of all, do you have any misgivings at all now that we are signed up? Do you have misgivings about this compact in any shape or form?
Well, there you go. See, we don't sign up. It's actually a vote on a non-binding matter at the United Nations, and there are hundreds of those things which happen every day. But all of a sudden, a number of people decided they're going to make a big song and dance about it. When I asked them, well, can I deal with each one of your so-called objections? Can I hear whether they stack up or not? They're not interested.
Let me put it another way. Are you comfortable with this compact?
Yes, I am. Having looked at it and carefully gone through it, and also made a definitive statement, and each country can do that on this vote at the UN, which was should have been 4 hours ago in the United Nations. Each country just states what it means to them.
Yep,
and
I appreciate that.
Precision, set it out, and also put out for you the media, the legal opinion I got from Crown Law. Now, either you can tell us that Crown Law is a bunch of idiots, or you can go along with your bias and prejudice. Not you personally, but those who are nutsy. Now, I know you're too smart and too sensible for that, but I can't have you on national radio, so to speak, the radio that people listen to, repeating this uninformed drivel.
Right. Does this compact blur the lines between legal and illegal migration?
No. It's clear as daylight.
What is regular? What is regular migration? What does that mean?
Regular migration is a migration that conforms with the law of the country to which the migrant is coming.
Has Australia got this all wrong, Winston?
Yes, they have. And look, I've heard what's coming out of Australia, and my response to that is, okay, which one of you guys is a lawyer when you make those statements? We know the Australian, I know, I can tell you why some countries are doing what they're doing. But when I say this, and nobody's going to challenge us, tell me what's the legal opinion of the Crown Law equivalent office in Australia. That's what I'm interested in hearing, not some political dog whistle.
I've been pouring through the legal advice, and thank you very much for disseminating it. Can I just pick up a couple of very quick things?
Are you a lawyer?
No, I'm just wanting to get your comment to this from Crown Law. Point 24, the courts may be willing... Well, you're the minister. You are who is accountable to us, I would have thought.
Yes, I know, but I am a lawyer. Can I just put for their opinion, right?
Can I just put this to you, please? The courts may be willing to refer to the compact and take it into account as an interpretive aid despite its non-binding nature. That's point 24 from Crown Law and MFAT's legal advice to you. Yes. Will that in itself give rise to people's concerns?
Look, please read the rest of what they said about that point. I know exactly what you've done there. You've given us half the quote.
Okay, I'll summarise it. In short, the compact will not be legally irrelevant, but in the event that the court gives it consideration, it will be taken into account in a limited way.
Yes,
Should that give rise to concern?
No, it shouldn't, because unless we're bound to do something according to a document that we signed or a treaty that we signed, then the question becomes, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about actually a way to stop, if we can, as a matter of principle, the awful trafficking in people and the corrupting and degradation of people. And we see it around the world, which is some of it, which is a hellhole. Dreadful practices going on. And we just the other day charged somebody who was doing it in our country for years. Now, let me tell you something, Mr. Yardley.
I do have to go.
I was out there saying that 20 years ago. Right. I was talking about the seasonal working industries where people were exploiting their own, and I got shut down by IRD and a whole lot of people. But don't let me have some of these Johnny-come-ladies tell me what crisis we're talking about when we deal with the degradation of people as a matter of principle.
Righto. Can I just get one last comment from you on this? Crown law legal advice. If Parliament wished to do so, it could give force to the compact by referring to it in legislation, blah, 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 blah. But this would be a policy choice and there would be no obligation. Will we be giving it force in legislation?
No, we will not be doing that. We made it very clear from the word go. This government will not be doing that. But some future government, such as like the National Party, who began this originated this process in September 2.5 years ago, they might want to do that. But then they'd be owning up to the fact that they were lying to you in the first place.
Are you receiving lots of congratulatory messages from your party faithful?
No.
Are you surprised?
No.
Are they bewildered?
Well, guess why? Because you've had a group of a campaign strategy by the alt-right in particular, and it is the alt-right in this case.
Is Paul Spoonley alt-right, Winston?
Well, actually, Mr. Spoonley is a sociologist from Mass University and doesn't understand the law, so he can opine.
Is Chris Trotter alt-right?
No, he's not alt-right. And Chris Trotter was talking about the political consequences of sometimes having to do something called principle.
Okay, Winston, I do have to go. I thank you very much for your time.
Mike Yardley, who you heard in that interview, is something of a local personality in Christchurch. 4 days after that clip aired, I went to see Christmas carols in Victoria Square, and Yardley was the MC. He also has a column in The Press, Christchurch's largest newspaper. He's somebody that people trust. And here he is, scoffing at the idea that opposition to the Migration Compact comes from the alt-right. 2 days before that interview, News Talk ZB ran a headline on their website: "Callers overwhelmingly opposed to New Zealand signing the Migration Compact." The article was a series of audio clips from callers, including one who cited the Stephen Molyneux video. By the end of 2018, a lot of people in politics and media had, knowingly or unknowingly, promoted a narrative that originated with white supremacists. Then on March 15th, 2019, white supremacy arrived in Christchurch in an incredibly violent way. The terrorist who shot 50 people had written, "Here's your migration compact," on one of his guns. Let me defer to somebody who speaks on this far better than I can.
The truth is also that we as politicians bear a little bit of the responsibility. There sit among us those who have for years fanned the flames of division, who have blamed migrants for the housing crisis. There sit among us those who fanned the hysteria around the UN Migration Compact. Those words were written on the butt of his gun, the gun that killed little Mossad. We have pandered to gratuitous racism by shock jocks to raise our profile. None of us are directly responsible for what happened on Friday. We are all horrified. But we are also on notice now. We have to change the way we do politics. Our most vulnerable communities are hurt. We are scared. White supremacists want us dead. And those incredible people who poured out into those vigils are watching. They will hold us to account. The world is watching.
Following the terrorist attack, a number of people in politics and media removed things from the internet that suddenly didn't look very good. Among those was a 2017 article by Chris Lynch, who you heard speaking with Elliot Ekeley earlier, asking if Islam had any place in public pools. More significantly though, the National Party removed the petition against the Migration Compact from their website. When questioned by media, A spokesperson for the National Party claimed that the petition had been deleted some weeks earlier as part of routine maintenance. But that wasn't correct.
A Google cache of the page showed the last archived copy as being 1:39 p.m. New Zealand time on Friday, March 15th, meaning it was deleted in the aftermath of the terrorist attack. National leader Simon Bridges was questioned about this by media.
Here was a genuine mistake. We thought that it had been archived weeks ago. I've told you straight up that a junior staffer didn't know, was very emotional and did this on his own volition, if you like. And, you know, I'm not going to criticise him for doing that at the event. It was not a lie. And I just say to you as media, actually, now's not a time for pettiness about these issues. 50 people died on Friday, and this hasn't, with the greatest respect, got a blind bit to do with it.
We were all emotional on that day, and it would be very easy to make a cynical joke about how most of us didn't cope with that emotion by deleting racist dog whistles from our employer's website. But let's just give Bridges the benefit of the doubt and assume his story is true. What was that junior staffer thinking? Did they suddenly feel a rush of guilt knowing that the party they worked for had been promoting an ideology that was shared by the terrorist? Did they decide that a small action they could take would be to remove this petition from the internet? Duncan Grieve from the Spin-Off requested an interview with the junior staffer, but this wasn't granted, so we may never know fully their motivation. Some more information has come out since then though. The junior staffer has actually worked for the party for a number of years and is now involved in a dispute with the organisation. He also alleges that Bridges lied to the media, saying that he asked Bridges' press team if the petition should be deleted, and then, upon receiving no reply, went ahead and deleted it. Now, this part of the story was still developing when I wrote the script for this video, so by the time this hits YouTube, maybe there'll be more information. If so, perhaps I'll do a follow-up video. To quote Chris Wilson, a senior lecturer in politics at Auckland University,
political parties need to be careful about what they are tolerating on their platform. Spreading Islamophobic ideas makes people think these views are widespread. It legitimises and cements people's incoherent views.
None of the groups I've mentioned in this video are responsible for what happened in
Christchurch,
but all of them played a role in spreading xenophobia and fear. And it's in that climate that extremism can grow. I'd like to say one more thing. Simon Bridges dropped the ball on this, whatever way you look at it. But what about someone like Elliot Ekeley? He seems like a decent enough guy. While we'll probably never agree on a lot politically, he's a former youth worker who's probably done a lot of good work in his community. Perhaps he'll now come out and apologise for his role in spreading alt-right conspiracy theories.
This coward was not... I don't even think he's white supremacist. He's not left and he's not right. I don't think he's white supremacist. I don't think he's anything. I think he's just taking the piss.
Maybe I spoke too soon.